This is Philly Talk with Philly Mike. Talking sixes in the bird gang, that's our life. Competition, we ain't scared, yeah, that's what we like. Win or lose, you know we showing up and we gon' fight. You see we strive for the sky every day that go by. And every single week we screaming fly, eagles fly. This is Philly Talk with Philly Mike, yeah. This is Philly Talk with Philly Mike, yeah.
What is going on, everybody? I go by Philly Mike, and this is the Philly Talk podcast. And today we got a special guest, Derek Gunn. How are you doing today?
Good, and you, man?
Hanging in there. One more day, the week is over, and Eagles football will be here. I'm not sure how of a rush we should be to get there because this game is big. Where we sit, coming off a tough 6-game stretch, this is really going to make or break this team. But what is your overall thoughts of what you've seen through the first 6 weeks?
Well, basically, the team has performed exactly the way I thought it would. It's a team in transition. New head coach, rookie head coach, first-time NFL head coach, a brand new staff, with a quarterback that had 4 games under a previous regime and now weeding his way through a current regime for 6 games. And it was going to take some time to get adapted. Your wide receiving core is a much younger receiving core, but you have talent there. You have talent in the backfield. And I thought the big key offensively was if they could keep the offensive line healthy, that would take a lot of pressure off of the quarterbacks, the running back, and, of course, the passing game as well. And, of course, as luck would have it, you know, they turn around, they lose Jordan Mailata for a while, they lose Brandon Brooks, they lose Lane Johnson, they lose Isaac Seumalo, so on and so forth. So it's like a repeat of 2020, and that has affected the overall continuity and the ability of this offense. But I think one of the biggest frustrating things is watching a young quarterback be indecisive at times, overthrow wide receivers wide open, and of course the multitude of penalties that have cost them touchdowns in a number of games. So it's a team in transition, a team that is growing, and a team going through growing pains as of right now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore. And as you touched on, the offensive line being banged up, the young wide receiving core, which has talent, but in crucial situations, the young part of the game shows, in certain situations.
Right.
However, when you look at the grand scheme of the media and where it's coming down to, it's really 2 people, Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. They're the ones because when you look at the trajectory of the Eagles, that is where it starts. In this NFL game, it's about the head coach and the quarterback tandem. Yes, you can thrive off a good defense. You can thrive off a great run game. You can have a superstar wide receiver. But when you look at the guys who get it done, you look at a coach, quarterback combination, and I think both are affecting each other. And, in this day of age, where, we have technical difficulties getting on live streams and stuff like that, and social media just wants an answer right away, this, that, and the third. They're trying to find out who's the bigger problem, Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, and it's kind of hard for a fan base like the Eagles fan base, which I love the passion, to sit back and see what's going on. Do you think that Nick Sirianni's play calling is affecting Jalen Hurts more, or do you think Jalen Hurts' indecisiveness and inconsistencies are affecting Nick Sirianni more?
Well, I think it's a combination of the two because we just recently heard Nick Sirianni step to the podium and basically say, because Jalen played in a certain type of system when he was at Oklahoma, they tried to streamline the offense to a scheme that was comfortable to what Jalen Hurts was doing at Oklahoma. And because of that, it has basically limited Nick Sirianni in terms of how he would structure his overall offense because he inherited this quarterback. It's not a quarterback he drafted. It's a quarterback that he inherited. So, from what I'm gathering and in talking to other people is, Nick would have maybe a little bit different playbook with maybe a little bit different type of quarterback. But I would also fire back. Well, you knew what you had once you watched film on Jalen Hurts when you got the job. You worked with him in OTAs and mini camps. You worked with him in training camp. So why didn't you try to teach him some of the things that were more conducive to your style of offense to have a more well-rounded offense instead of handcuffing yourself? And, now we understand why he's always out of the shotgun and he doesn't perform under center, and things like that. But you could have had him adapt to a certain degree to make your playbook just a little bit more expansive. But now that you've hit the ground running with the real games, now you're handcuffed with what you have and what you can do with him. And, NFL players and NFL defensive coordinators and defensive coaches, they're smart enough to start picking up on certain little nuances that you do when you step to the line of scrimmage. And, a lot of teams are picking up on this RPO stuff. They have picked up on the RPO stuff, in recent years gone by, and it's starting to affect your overall game. And if you have a quarterback who's missing targets down the field, and if you have an offensive scheme that consistently shoots itself in the foot with penalties, then exactly what we've seen over the first 6 games is what we're going to continue to see.
Correct. Looking at this team, and I agree there. I just think when it comes to something as simple as just run the ball a little bit, you know what I mean? We make our jokes and stuff, but I think that helps any young quarterback. And I'm not here to compare Jalen Hurts to Dak Prescott or even like the Patriots quarterback, Mac Jones. But you've seen Dak's rookie year. He had the leading rusher. I'm not saying Miles and them can be that, but they limit his throwing. Now, yes, that has nothing to do if Jalen Hurts is going to miss some open targets, but maybe if he's a little bit doing a little bit more of a routine throw and asked to throw less, some of them inconsistencies don't show, and it builds up, and he has more confidence in the offensive line. Because the biggest red light I see in Jalen's game is the panic button hit a little too soon and the ability to throw guys open. He's coming from Oklahoma where, like you said, shotgun, cool. But he also played in the conference where the defense ain't that elite. And he was throwing a CeeDee Lamb. And although I love Devontae Smith, they get open a little different. CeeDee Lamb go up and get it. Devontae more of a route runner. So Jalen Hurts relied on his athletics, which is going to take a decrease at the NFL level because of the speed and the skill players. And then he also relied on his first read of CeeDee Lamb. And so he's adjusting to that. And I do believe you can be taught that. I just need to see it come together. And I just think if Nick Sirianni ran the ball a little bit more and gave him somewhat of a traditional offense, whether he sinks or swims, if this is the audition year, you gotta audition in an NFL package. Because just say Jalen Hurts was playing a little bit better. Say he was making the throws that he missed. We would still be now asking, why aren't you running the ball? And is this going to be your offense for the rest of your life? So I still think you can incorporate it. Look at Cliff Kingsbury and Kyle Murray, not comparing them again, but they run RPO 35% of the time. You still have somewhat of traditional football. When you take that away, you make a guy who's a little inconsistent and passer deal with more of a passing defense. They're playing the pass majority of the time.
I think Sirianni abandons his game plan a little bit too soon, especially when his team gets behind. And I understand to a certain degree, you don't want to let things get out of control, but you can also control the clock better. Even if you're down by 7 or 10 points and there's still a lot of football to be played, you can control the clock a little bit more and keep the opposing offense off the field if you can run the football. You have a running back who's averaging almost 5 yards a carry in Miles Sanders. You have a running back in a Kenneth Gainwell that can pick up 3 to 4 yards. If you're picking up 3.5 yards per carry, that's a first down every third carry. And you're moving the chains, you're keeping the other offense off the field, and hopefully you're striking and putting points on the board and playing in front instead of behind. Now, the last few games, a game such has not been the case. They were able to rally and pull one out against Carolina. I didn't think they would win going into that game. But, you look at the game they played against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay basically took their foot off the gas and let them back in the game. Tampa Bay could have stomped them a lot worse than scoring in the game. And Tampa Bay let them back in the game. I'm assuming out of boredom, so they let them back in the game. But see, these are all learning tools for a young head coach and strategic players who are still getting acclimated to playing with the Philadelphia Eagles, who are getting used to playing in the National Football League, who are getting used to playing in this Nick Sirianni scheme or a Jonathan Gannon scheme as well. Now, luckily, you're in a division where right now it looks like Dallas could run away with the division, but you can still do enough damage to possibly push for that extra wild card spot. But you've got to turn it around right now. Because, you look at the Redskins, you look at the Giants. The Redskins have been a major disappointment defensively. The Giants have been a major disappointment offensively, considering all the weapons they've added. So the Eagles could be that team if they can turn this thing around. And with the second half of their schedule being a lot softer than the first half of the schedule, they could do some damage and possibly slip in the back door. But it has to happen right now.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better myself. This Raiders game is pretty darn big, especially with the NFL, bringing that extra spot. Now there's 3 wild card teams instead of 2.
Right.
And when you look at the Raiders, they're 4-2, but they definitely susceptible to a lot of things. And the one thing they're susceptible to is the run game. They rank 25th overall against the rush. So this is one of them games where Nick Sirianni had an extra couple days. He said he watched some tape. I'm kind of mad. He said he got his most ideas from the Jaguars game. I'm like, what can you really learn from the Jaguars?
Yeah, really. Wow. I look at this matchup, and I wanted to see how the Raiders would respond in hindsight of the John Gruden bombshell. I've seen a lot of teams fold and could possibly use that as a built-in excuse why they weren't ready to play the next game. But the Raiders came out and won a key divisional game against the Denver Broncos to stay in the thick of that AFC West race, which they're tied with the Chargers for first place right now out in there. And with the Chargers, of course, being idle this week, I'm sure the coaching staff and the Raiders are thinking, look, we have a chance to move a half game in front and control a division. Nobody thought Kansas City would be on the bottom looking up. But right now, when we look at where we could be after 7 games, we could be on the top instead of the middle or the bottom. So that's got to be their rallying cry from this moment on. And I look at the Raiders personnel. They have some weapons on offense. I mean, they have some flat-out weapons on offense. But you never know which Derek Carr is going to show up. They've got Hunter Renfrow. They got, Henry Ruggs. And they got a tight end named Darren Waller, who I think is one of the most underrated tight ends in the game. And I think he's one of the top 3 or 4 tight ends in the game as well. And, of course, the Eagles have problems covering their tight end. So here we go again. So if you want to diffuse that offense, because if Derek Carr has one of those games he's capable of having at home, it's going to be another long day for the Eagles on the road. But if you can diffuse that Raiders offense, and by that I mean run the football against a defense that is susceptible to the run and is very generous in the running area, it makes the game that much closer and gives you a better opportunity to get an all-important W at the end of the game. But then again, through 6 games, what we've seen so far, I'm not getting my hopes up about seeing more runs than passes in this game.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the thing. I think, with the built-up anticipation of constantly being asked about the run, hopefully as much as he self-scouted, he also looked at the Raiders. And when, the book is, when the book's titled Run Against the Raiders, I just don't see how it can't happen. I'm not saying it has to go into a bunch of single back sets, I formations. You don't got to bring out all this stuff, but you can run from the shotgun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't like saying my quarterback is your leading rusher. We've seen Patrick Mahomes do it. We've seen Lamar Jackson do it. We've seen Lamar Jackson run for over 1,000 yards. But we've also seen it where the running quarterback gets banged up unnecessarily a lot more than normal, i.e. a Robert Griffin III. Look at what happened to his career. This kid came into the world. Everybody thought he'd take the league by storm, had a phenomenal rookie year. All of a sudden blows out his knees. Never been the same quarterback since. Why put your quarterback in harm's way unless it's absolutely necessary? Yes, with this new era of quarterback, yes, have a few running design plays, but I don't want my quarterback always being my leading rusher in a game, because that tells me that you don't trust the other people that you have in your backfield. Miles Sanders can be an electric player, both running the ball and catching it out of the backfield. We've seen Miles' capability once he gets to the second tier, making people miss. And if he gets behind you, you look at the back of his jersey, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to catch him from behind. They don't utilize Miles Sanders enough. There's no excuse for Miles Sanders getting anywhere from 5 to 8 touches in a game where he should be getting easily 10 to 15, 18 touches in a game. And when I say touches, I'm combining running and passing plays. I don't necessarily have to see a Miles Sanders get 15, 18 carries, but I do need to see a Miles Sanders get 15 to 18 touches in a game. I think it helps open up an offense a lot more. I think it makes an offense more diverse. It gives a defense that much more to think about. You have some young speedsters now on the outside. You've got to set your play calling up so that you give them more of an opportunity in one-on-one situations to get downfield, and maybe you can hit that home run that you've been trying to hit more consistently in the past. but you've got to utilize every weapon at your disposal, man. You're handcuffing your offense by not utilizing all your assets.
Yeah, exactly right. You know, we want to take the shots with Quez and even Devontae, but the defense that are being played against the Eagles are, you know, predominantly pass. They're playing cover. They're playing quarters. They got the safeties back because they're not afraid. And even if we do get one explosive run, you know, the defensive coordinators probably, you know, well, we got 6, 7, 8 plays in a row where we can draw back in coverage. They're not going to counter it. And it's as simple as just calling a run play, you know. I think it's kind of hard to go up to the line into a single back set under center because you're showing your hand then, you know. But Miles Sanders definitely deserves touches. I mean, he took 3 plays last year for 70+ yards, so he's a home run waiting to happen. And it just does so much. You need some rhyme and rhythm. That's why you see the great play callers like the Kyle Shanahans, the Sean McVays, they set you up. And the one thing I like about Kyle Shanahan, right? He'll run the same play, you know, a couple times in a game out of this formation and then come back to that same formation where the players and the coaches swear they're going to do this. And it's just something totally opposite.
Absolutely.
You can run so many things from a formation. And yeah, I don't know what the truth is, because if Nick Sirianni is only, you know, a lot of regular Eagle fans, right? And I'm a regular Eagle fan too. When they look at the shotgun, unless Nick Sirianni says something that really he shouldn't have said anyways today, like you said about doing the RPO and in the shotgun, because that's what kind of Jalen's used to. You shouldn't say that. You shouldn't relay that. But you, at the end of the day, used to or not, he's an NFL quarterback. He's going to have to show what we got, because as you know, Jeff Lurie, Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni are making a decision. You can't make a decision on something that's only half open. You got to let him run the full playbook, sink or swim, you know, because right now we're not swimming anyway. So it couldn't be much worse if you just play ball.
This is a very pivotal year for this organization. Not so much in terms of winning and losing right now, but identifying, critiquing, and deciding what elements of this current team that you want to keep moving forward. And when you consider the assets they have in 2022, possibly 3 first-round draft picks, possibly 3 first-round draft picks in the top 10 or 12 players. You're talking about adding 3 primetime players that could be cornerstones to already what you've started now. But you have to get a thorough book on what you're looking at right now to decide what you want to do. You need to see what Jalen Hurts is capable of doing. Don't handcuff this kid. Let's see exactly what his strengths are and what his weaknesses are. Because now we're basing everything we look at on a limited package because of what the coaches told us in terms of, well, he's more comfortable here. Well, you know, sometimes to make a player better, you have to make them uncomfortable. And you have to make them extend themselves, okay? So you've got to decide, is Miles Sanders the kind of back that you want for the future? Because basically what we've seen, you're telling us, Miles maybe not exactly what I like in my backfield. If you look at a lot of times, you know, Sirianni has favored Gainwell more than he has a Miles Sanders, and I still can't figure that out for the life of me. You have to figure out, is Jalen Reagor, what is he to this offense, not just now, but beyond this year? How much longer can you use the excuse that he was a first-round pick to decide if he is a player that you want as a long-term solution, whether it's for your slot, as an option on the outside, or whatever the case may be? You have to decide that as well, okay? We already know that Quez Watkins and Devonta Smith are going to be here for a while. We also know that Jordan Mailata is going to be the anchor on your left side. But beyond that, we don't know a whole lot. This could be Jason Kelsey's last year. Lane Johnson, Brandon Brooks, you know, they're getting up there in age. We don't know how much longer they're going to be durable. We don't want to see another Jason Peters scenario where they're in and out all season long due to injuries. Now, that's not a knock on them, because when they're healthy, they are 2 of the best in the business and arguably the best right guard, right tackle tandem in the National Football League. But you don't know when you can count on them. So you have to decide, with all these assets you're building up, especially with the trade to Zach Ertz, you got another 5th-round pick. You know, do we need offensive alignment? Do we need another tight end? Do we need a more premier running back? Is quarterback our priority? You know, so, you know, what do we need here? Well, you have to take a thorough assessment and then sit down and come to the realization, did we utilize our assets to the best of their ability in 2021? Are we comfortable with these entities here, or do we need to start looking in a different direction?
Yeah. And when you look at what the Eagles have in skill positions or young talent going forward, you still see the bulk of it on the offensive side.
Right.
I'm not saying it's all there, but you do got the Angers and a Mulata and a Dickerson, right? Some quality backups and some Driscolls and whatnot. You got at least 2 wide receivers you can take to the future with you. Maybe Rager can be that third guy if he gets his mind right. JJ's one of them guys. It's about time. Look, listen, you know what I mean? You wear an Eagle helmet, I'm gonna rock with you, you know what I mean? But JJ Arcega-Whiteside only getting about 4 or 5 snaps a game, pretty much guaranteeing it's a run play when he's in the game. I mean, show your hand. I think it's time. With that being said, the defense is where the aging players are. And same with the offensive line. And as this, season goes on, couple years from here next year and whatnot, you got to look at the top 2 things: money and age. And no matter how much we love these guys, it's you got to start making that transition, because depending on how fast we can rebuild this, if right now we honestly think, like, say we had a crystal ball and we're like, 3 years we're going to be competing real good. Well, then you got to look at the 32-year-olds. Are they going to be able to compete with us when they're 35? So you got to look at that. And it's really hard because, anybody who puts on Midnight Green, especially the guys who've been doing it for so long,
right.
I've seen them all go, but it's tough. But that's where the business end comes onto it. And that's what this season was. But because the Eagles have been a team that shows bounce back quickly, and, a lot of good things this offseason, we did think the NFC East was going to be worse. Most of it is, except for Dallas. But, what can go wrong will go wrong. Hopefully, it's still part of their memoir. We just got to see. And I agree there 100%. But transition into this Raiders game, right? So what are you more worried about? The offense game planning for that 25th overall ranked run, 10th overall against the pass, or the defense slowing down the Oakland Raiders? What worries you more?
I would say, what will Nick Sirianni's game plan be to attack this Raiders defense? Will he try to make it more of a balanced offense? The Raiders have basically shown you that if you run the football against us, you will have a measure of success. Don't play into the Raiders' hands, and have a lot of 3 and outs and give the ball back to that Raiders offense. Now, the Raiders offense has the third best passing attack in the National Football League right now. Do you want to play to the Raiders' strength, or do you want to take away their strength and make them rely more on their weakness? So it remains to be seen. We can talk about this Eagles defense up and down the walkway about how inconsistent it is, and it is. But there's 2 things that I do like about this Eagles defense. Number 1, they have now picked off 5 passes in their last 3 games. Number 2, they have only given up 11 plays of 20+ yards. Now we can say, well, they play their safety so deep, like to the next county. You don't need to throw deep on a secondary, but they do keep a lot of things in front of them. They've got to do a better job of getting a pass rush up front. But to directly answer your question, I say right now my biggest concern going in is, and this will constantly swirl in my mind until we get to game time, what will Nick Sirianni's offensive game plan be to attack this Raiders defense? Raiders defense, is not a great defense, but it is a fast defense, sideline to sideline. And so you're going to have to come up with something to get the best of them. And I believe the best way to get something on them is to establish that running attack. Even with this young offensive line, even with this passed up offensive line, run the football, make them respect you on the run so that you can set up your pass a lot better and hopefully find a lot more targets wide open, instead of having to worry about throwing in the coverage, patting the ball too long, throwing the ball out of bounds, or overthrowing receivers when you're under duress.
Correct. Yeah. The run game starts out strong. It's definitely going to have Jalen Hurts have easier reads, easier throws. But yeah, talking about the defense, it's interesting. We played 6 games, and when we played the C+, maybe B-, more C+ quarterbacks and Garoppolo, Matt Ryan, who's older but still can, find some creases. Him and the Falcons have been able to put points up on other teams.
Right.
They still lose because their defense is just horrific.
Right.
But the Matt Ryans, the Jimmy Garoppolos, and the Sam Darnold, we attack them. We don't let them get off or nothing like that. It was the Dak Prescotts, the Pat Mahomes, and the Tom Brady's of the world that we played more conservative. Now, Jonathan Gannon hasn't been a blitzer. He's been playing coverage, safety's back,
Right.
Like you said, in another county, but we still treat the quarterbacks different. We did blitz a little bit more when we played them. Right now, looking at Derek Carr, you hear the name, you think of the last couple of years, he's been more of the Garoppolos, the Matt Ryans and them. But this year he's trending toward one of them better quarterbacks in the league.
Right.
How are we going to fare against him, do you think?
You let Derek Carr stand back there 3, 4, 5 seconds and find, Henry Ruggs, Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller. It's going to be a long day for you. You have to attack. You have to approach this man from different angles. You have to give him something that he is not seeing on film. Him and the offensive staff are not seeing on film. You're going to have to increase your blitzing, or else he's going to stand back there and pick you apart. If you're going to play your safeties 30 yards down the field, a smart offensive team is going to dink and dunk their way down the field. And as soon as they recognize that one of your safeties is cheating up in the box a little bit more, that's when they're going to try to hit you over the top. But because they consistently play their safety so far back, you don't have to worry about trying to throw deep on this team. You can still pick up, 10, 12, 15 yards a pass play on this team and be just as effective. And let's face it, the Raiders do have a running game, and the Eagles' defensive front has had problems stopping the run as well. So Derek Carr likes to throw the football. What are you going to do to make him uncomfortable? To upset his rhythm, to get him off his spot, to force him to go in a direction he doesn't want to go, to get a few more hits on him than maybe he wants you to get on him. Because quarterbacks, if you hit them enough, all of a sudden they start thinking a lot more than they should, and it affects 9 times out of 10, it will affect what they're trying to do in a rhythm style offense. So, but see, what we're talking about here is simple. It's basic football. But we haven't been watching basics from Jonathan Gannon and Nick Sirianni up to this point. We keep beating our heads against the wall, asking ourselves, why are we not doing this so that we're more competitive and giving ourselves more of a chance to win certain games? And the more we watch what we've been watching, the more frustrating it becomes, the more boisterous the fan base and the media will become.
Yeah. Coming from Jim Schwartz, getting a guy like Jonathan Gannon, hearing in the offseason his, guys he looked up to, the Mike Zimmers of the world, you automatically hear Mike Zimmer, you think aggressive, you think blitz, you think go get it. And he's been the exact opposite. When it works, it works. But as you said, other quarterbacks can pick us apart. And it's telling when you got the Kansas City Chiefs coming into your house, right? Andy Reid, a guy who wants to sling the ball around. Pat Mahomes, probably one of the giftest quarterbacks we have today. And they ran the ball for 200 yards, right? You know how hard it was for Andy Reid to keep calling run after run? He was itching for a pass play, but that's how susceptible we have been this year because of the safeties being back. And I think you got to switch it up. I think when we went into this Carolina game, he did show some different looks compared to the Bucks game. I think when he plays them good quarterbacks, he really doesn't want to give up the big play. But I think I heard Seth Joyner say this. What do you want? Death by one stab or death by 1,000 cuts? Right. I think it's so demoralizing as a fan watching a run game go for 5, 6, 5, 8, 6. Yeah. I mean, if every second down is under 5 yards, you're just like, just get this first down so we can try it, because it's demoralizing, because the 3rd and 1s in this league are a big time difference than the 3rd and longs. Right. And that's what we got to put our guys in. And looking at this Eagles defense today, last month, the strongest point of this defense is the defensive line. It's been that way forever. And you playing so much coverage, so off, relying on your linebackers to really do the tackling in the run game, you're really hurting this D-line. It's hurting them. It's making them, they can't get to the quarterback before the quarterback lets the ball go, because how we're playing them in big play Slay, he's a guy who wants to follow. Look what he did against DJ Moore in the first game I really seen him shadow. I just don't understand for the coaches. And look, no matter how I feel on Sunday, while I do this and trying to just woo-saw, I'm always about giving time, because nobody's just, these are young guys. But like I said, when we're talking about this, and shout to the chat, we got about 170 people in here. Make sure you hit the like when they say the same things. My son watching the game a little bit, he's like, I don't see no run play. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's just little things like that I just think, sometimes you got to simplify. I think a lot of people want to come out and be that new coordinator, that new coach that everybody's talking about, right? Nobody, when you think about coaches now, right? Nobody talks about the Mike Tomlins. Nobody talks about the Bill well, they talk about them, but they think of the young passing guys, right? Bill Belichick is the greatest coach, but you don't think of, oh, he's just going to be able to game plan your death, but he does. Mike Tomlin, don't get noticed. He's a great game planner. Everybody wants to be the Sean McVays, the Kyle Shanahans, creating all this design and all that, but even they know how to get back to the basics. And I think you just got to do that sometimes, especially when everything is new. It's tough. It's tough.
It's a growing process, and we're seeing a lot of flaws in the coaching staff, not just in coaching, but comments they make when they step to the podium. You look at Jonathan Gannon, who a few weeks ago says, I don't have a scheme, I have a philosophy. And we're like, wait a minute, what? Every defensive coordinator has a scheme. What do you mean you don't have a scheme? And then, of course, the next week he comes back and says, let me clarify what I meant. Okay, so you made a mistake. Everybody's human. Unfortunately, we live in a society now, especially with Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, where everybody's an expert now. When somebody makes a mistake, all of these people come out of the woodwork and want to jump on people like they've never made mistakes before. So these are learning tools that coaches have to understand. You look at an Andy Reid. Andy Reid never told you anything. Andy Reid was always in control of his press conferences. And rightfully so. He didn't tell you what you wanted to hear. He told you what you needed to know. And when I have a chance to talk to Andy a lot of times away from the cameras, and I tell people all the time, if you ever had a chance to sit down with Andy Reid away from the cameras, he is one of the funniest people you ever wanted to meet. He has a sense of humor. And I said, Andy, why don't you ever display some of that humor when you're at the podium? He goes, I don't need to do that. That's not what I'm there for. All I need to tell them is what I want them to know and what I think they need to know, and that's it. That's the way he's always conducted his business. Now, Jonathan Gannon or Nick Sirianni tried to be a little bit more open, with the media, tried to be a little bit more friendly. And in doing so, they've made some mistakes that they have now realized a market like Philadelphia, a media and fan base like Philadelphia pick up on like that. And they've had to backtrack and retract some of the statements they've made. So that's a learning process of a new head coach and a new defensive coordinator. And hopefully they learn from these things and don't make the same mistakes. Thank goodness we're not at the other extreme where we have to listen to Bill Belichick every week, who basically talks down to you like you're beneath him and gives you absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So, but at least Sirianni's trying to be honest and forthcoming with a lot of what he says. He just needs to clean it up a little bit. I'm like everybody else. I want to know as much as I can, but I also know from a coaching perspective, there's certain things the general public doesn't need to know. I don't care how much they're clamoring for it. They don't need to know certain things that are going on behind closed doors. And Nick is trying to be as honest as he can possibly be. And I don't know Nick Sirianni. I've not met Nick Sirianni in person. I'm just telling you from what I've heard from his press conferences and in talking to other people in the organization. He's a good man. He has a good offensive mind. We just haven't seen the full Nick Sirianni yet.
Yeah, and like we opened this up with, as you can see above me, Eagles must beat the Raiders. This is the game that anything that was, thought about, anything that, you think you're not doing, all this self-scouting and hopefully scouting on the Raiders have to come out this game for the simple fact that you really can put yourself in the right direction. As we said, our schedule gets a little bit lighter. I think we thought it was a lot lighter in the offseason, though, because in the offseason, the Raiders are normally, since Gruden took over, and now that he's not there, regardless, they haven't been a winning team since. So in the offseason, I'm thinking Raiders, they're probably going to be under 500 at this point. Broncos, with their quarterback issue, not knowing if Teddy was going to be the answer, under 500. So them two right there in this next stretch kind of beefs it up, but it's still a lot easier than the 5-1 Cowboys and the 2 Super Bowl teams and the Chiefs and the Bucks. With that being said, the Chargers. I had the Chargers in there too. You get a win here, and I don't like to ever jump the gun, but because we're looking at the trajectory and not really classifying this year as a playoff, trying to get to the playoffs, even though if that comes, thank you.
Right.
You win this game, you got the Lions, who maybe they're thinking that we're a team that they can get one win on, but they also can be thinking about, they lose week 6 and now they're 0-6. They're thinking about that number 1 pick too. So then maybe, upper management has the Lions playing a little bit nervous. Players don't tank, but upper management is what does that. They make the calls to try to make it less successful, less of a chance they could win. With that being said, you could find yourself at 4-4 right at the trade deadline. 4-4 for a team that's went up and down and had its issues, quarterback and coach. That I think that's sitting pretty. You're sitting at the same total you had last year at 4-4, but it all starts in Las Vegas, where what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. But this loss won't stay in Vegas.
No, anything that this team does moving forward is a plus for itself, for the organization, for the morale individually and collectively of every player in that locker room. I went into this season with no expectations, high or low, because it was too iffy to try to critique in terms of what this team was capable of doing. How quickly could it come together and gel? And so right now it's been more downs than ups. And I'm hoping that it does pick up sooner rather than later. This is a game for me right now that could go either way. I think it's a more evenly matched game, but I think in a lot of strategic areas, the Raiders have a little bit better personnel than the Eagles do, and more experienced personnel than the Eagles do. You look at the Detroit game. Detroit is a wounded animal. You don't want the Eagles to be that first team that Detroit gets his win against. Can you imagine this city if Detroit would get their first W against this team?
Yeah.
People are already beside themselves. And if the Eagles somebody lost that game on the road to Detroit, oh my goodness, this city would lose its mind. And then you have to face a Chargers team that's a pretty good team on both sides of the football. You still have to face Denver as well. Denver is right now, since going 3-0, they've lost 3 consecutive games. But, Teddy Bridgewater is another one of those quarterbacks. He can rise up and throw for 400 yards, or he can throw for $150. You just never know which Teddy Bridgewater is going to show up on any given day. But I tell you what, Denver has some incredible wide receivers on that team. So Eagles can't afford to overlook anybody. And when they tell you it's a week-to-week process, it is. I feel for the guys who have been in the league a while, like the Jason Kelce's, the Lane Johnsons, who want to win badly, but who are a part of this process of, I don't like to say rebuilding, but retooling. And when you retool, a lot of times you have to take a step back to get 2 steps ahead down the road. These are guys that are in the twilight of their career, if you want to call it that. And I know they want to go out on a high note, and I'm sure it's tough for them internally. They say all the right things externally in front of the cameras to the media. I know it's tough for them internally. But they know it's the nature of the business. What you had yesterday, you don't necessarily have today, and you may not have in the immediate future while you're still a part of this organization. So you just go out there and do the best you possibly can. So moving forward, I'm just looking for the Eagles to do the best they possibly can. I said at the outset of this season on a number of platforms, I'm not going to sit here and predict like we all like to do before a season starts every year. The losses. I'm not here to predict wins and losses. What I want to see is growth. If growth and it's more losses than wins, then this team is moving in the right direction. If I'm not seeing growth and there's more losses than wins, you got a major problem at the end of the season. If somehow, some way that this team is growing and they're winning more, that's an even bigger plus as you get ready to transition into 2022. So I'm just looking for individual and collective growth as this team continues on its journey in 2021.
Yeah. And speaking of some of the veterans, shout out to Jason Kelsey for pretty much laying down the facts for Ben Simmons. With that whole saga going on, and Jason Kelsey's right. That's all Philly ever really wants. We
Right.
want to win behind it too, but deep
Right.
down, we get a rap that people, the outsiders were gonna say whatever they want to say, but the inside knows exactly what we are and who we are.
Exactly.
With that being said, we're coming up around 40 minutes. I want to get some player takes for this game. I know we don't like to do predictions, but this, we get a little something before I let you go. Once again, shout out to the chat. We got almost 200 in here. Hit the like. And also, for them who don't know, the podcast you have, what is it called again?
Gunn on One, the podcast. Great podcast. This week, tomorrow morning, I'll have Mark Zumoff, former Sixers broadcaster. He'll be on with me to talk about this Ben Simmons drama, of course, what he perceives to be, what the Sixers team perceives to be in 2021 and 22. So I can't wait for my chat with Mark Zumoff. Great guy.
Yeah. That's good. Definitely check out the podcast. So going into this Raiders game, I want to know the two offensive players that you hope and think can have the game we need them to have to get the W, and then the same on the defensive side. Two players on offensive defense that go up above and beyond, or like a stat line-ish, like this
Right.
guy's going to bowl out and help secure the W to come home, to go to Detroit in.
I would say on offense, it would have to be Miles Sanders and Devonta Smith. I hope Devonta Smith has 12 catches for 180 yards on this Raiders defense. I hope Miles Sanders gets his 18, 20 touches in this game, a combination of runs and catches in this game to help open up the offense even more. I'm not banking on it, considering what I've seen so far in terms of how they utilize or lack of utilization of a Miles Sanders, but I'm hoping for it. On the defensive side of the ball, I want to see the defensive line get home more, to put more pressure. I can't just single out one player in that regard. I want to see a defensive line put more pressure on Derek Carr, make him extremely uncomfortable, so he doesn't have time to sit back there. Because no matter what he's going to find Darren Waller, he's going to find Henry Ruggs, he's going to find Hunter Renfrow. He's going to find one of those players or all of those players at any given time. I just want to make sure it's infrequent and not frequent throughout the course of this game. And on the back end, I want to see the secondary have another big game. Pick off a couple of passes to turn the tide of the game. Help shorten the field for your offense. Take some of the pressure off your offense. Maybe your offense can play with a lead instead of coming from behind in this particular game. Put more pressure on the Raiders in their own backyard than the Raiders are allowed to put pressure on you as a visitor.
Yeah, and I think if that happens, you're looking at a very good game. We live and die by the D-line, and I think that this game has to be focused around Miles Sanders. I'm with you. 18 touches, even if it's on some short intermediate passes. Not too many screens, though, especially in the order we call them. I mean, that's a little questionable. With that being said, shout out to everybody in the chat. Definitely go check out the Real D Guns podcast. Hit the like button on the way out. And we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.